Sorcerers! Josh here. And after the controversies a couple weeks ago, I decided to reflect on my relationship with Sorcery, what I want out of the game, and specifically how that aligns with the plan that Eric Curiosa has laid out for the game long term. Now, we all know that Sorcery was designed to be a boutique kitchen tabletop experience that captured the nostalgia of the earliest collectible card games in the 90s. The game has been incredibly successful in that regard, and I really think that it has captured that essence that it was aiming for. The one thing that I'm a little concerned about, though, is that all of those games focused quite heavily on the competitive side. Now, I'm not talking about the very, very beginning, alpha and beta in Magic, but tournaments and getting together to play in a competitive environment developed fairly quickly and was something that everyone looked forward to. So I assumed, given the audience that Sorcery was targeting with the game, it only made sense that they would end up with a group of competitive players that sought out a competitive tournament environment. And I assumed that once that happened, the company would pivot a little bit and accommodate that, because they obviously want the game to grow, not only because they want the profit, but the game is a project of passion. So you want everyone to experience. You want the most people you can get to play the game, to enjoy it, because it's a creation. And that was the thing I forgot. And maybe some of you did too. Sorcery is a passion project. It's the vision of one man and what he wants the game to be. And he doesn't necessarily want a competitive, inside-the-box game. He wants something that's flashy, that swings unexpectedly. He wants the game to twist all of a sudden. And that's not really the hallmarks of a highly competitive game. Now, certainly, Eric Curiosa has clearly taken some steps to support competitive play. They developed the Play Network so that we could run tournaments. They created the Dust reward system, which is designed primarily to award dust through play. They just gave us the draft kit, which is designed for limited play. And that's usually done in a tournament environment. People do draft at home, but it's not as often that they're doing it at home versus in a store. And finally, the new store kit, which incorporated that draft kit, again, seems to be designed for, a competitive play environment, or at the very least, a competitive league. So they are taking steps to lean in to competitive play. But then we had all the remarks about, well, I want the game to be unfair, that threw everyone, including myself, for a bit of a loop. Now, obviously, we all need to take into account those remarks were off the cuff. We all say stupid things on the internet. That's just the way it is. Our mouth speaks before we filter it with our brains, although I guess in this case, our fingers type before we filter it with our brains. So I do think that that's something that we definitely should consider with those remarks. But that gets me back to my original purpose, my reflection. What do I want from Sorcery? I want to be able to go to events. I want to be able to judge those events. I want to be able to participate in the community in that way. And that means that I need a fairly large competitive base. Everyone's gearing up for Sorcery Con right now that can go. And I don't know what their attendance numbers are at, but I think I've heard people throw around like 250 to 300. I want Sorcery Con and the Spring Social and March of Mortals and all of those big organized events. I want those to be in the thousands. That's what I want. Now, it's clear that that really isn't the mindset of Eric's Curiosa, but I think they should go there and keep the wonkiness. I think that can be done. I think that there are people out there who are seeking this kind of twisty, swingy play, even in a competitive environment. And I think the game can grow that way. So for me, as long as I can get that, as long as I can get those events, I can go and I can judge. That's what I want out of Sorcery. I love the community of Sorcery. I'm getting that from Sorcery. That's great. But I know that some folks want that really competitive side of the game. And I get that. That's fun too, especially if you really like highly competitive games. But with Sorcery, we just all have to realize there's going to be some weird things. I'm going to come up to you with a ruler and set it next to you, and you're going to blow that card off your hand. That's what's going to happen. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that those moments actually build the excitement of the game, build the memories that you'll have of the game, that you blew the card off just right, it landed just perfectly, and it killed that minion that you blew off and the minions that you wanted to hit. You know, those things, or maybe it, you know, they were at death's door and the minion slammed down and did it, you know. So that's just what I think this game can offer to everyone. It's a memory builder. It's a game that you are not going to forget. I cannot even fathom the number of games that were very, here's the rules. You play in this box. This is the rules. I don't know how many of those games I've forgotten, especially if we talk about individual play experiences at a tournament, you know, just a single game on the kitchen table. I've forgotten those. And with Sorcery, because we're going to keep some of these odd things that, yes, maybe makes the game unfair, or at least swingy, those memories, it's basically going to allow you to build those memories, to remember that. And I think that that's actually more enjoyable in the end run. When Eric designed this game, he designed it because he had a passion for the early days of collectible card games. And there were some weird things that you could do in the earliest days. Now, eventually those were streamlined out and the games became highly competitive and leaned into that because they needed that. They needed that to grow the player base. And I feel like Sorcery does need the competitive side to grow the player base. But I think overall, the decision to keep the game funny and a little strange and to let some of these really entertaining things happen, I think that will make for a longer, a better experience overall and a longer lifetime for the game. Because people like that. They like the unexpected. Some folks might not, but I think a lot of people like the unexpected. So that's just where I'm at right now, the things that I'm thinking about. I'm hopeful that Eric's Curiosa continues to say, hey, we're not giving up on the competitive side. We understand that's an important aspect of our player base. And that's an important way to grow the game. And as long as I keep seeing all those things, as long as I see that, the game is entertaining, that it requires a depth of strategy that really is unexpected given some of the surprising things that can happen. As long as I'm seeing all those and they're saying, we're not going to give up on the competitive base, I'm sticking around. And I hope you will too. Because we're less than 2 weeks away from Arthurian Legends. We're only, a month and a week or so out from Sorcery Con. There's a lot of good times to be had. One of the greatest things about Sorcery is our community. I cannot state that enough. I do not like competitive TCGs because the communities tend to be very divisive, and that's not my cup of tea. So that's one of the big things I love about Sorcery. And I think to maintain that, we do need to keep some of these weird things. Just my thoughts. I don't know if they're right or if they're wrong, but hopefully you stick around, be patient, see where things go, and we all end up enjoying this game immensely for a very long time to come. In the meantime, keep on contesting the realm, and I'll talk to you all later.